Hi, welcome to my podcast entitled The Wright Experience. I'm Dr. William T. Wright Jr., the founder and host of this show. I am in my ninth year now as a school superintendent and my 24th overall as a public school educator. Over those years, I've been blessed enough to be able to get to know and work with some amazing leaders from all across the United States. The vision of this show is to share these podcasts with you so that we can learn from people who are leading others every day. Our initial focus is on educational leaders, and we'll look eventually to expand to other disciplines down the road. When you hear something that you like, please click like, drop us a comment, or if you're viewing us via YouTube, we'd also love it if you would click that subscribe button. I've been absolutely amazed at the responses we've gotten, and we look forward to our continued success as we move forward. Tonight is episode number 28 of The Wright Experience. My guest this evening is a nationally renowned author, a retired superintendent, a motivational speaker, and the CEO of an organization aimed at helping youth. He has served in many national posts for organizations aimed at improving literacy. I met him about 10 years ago when I was an assistant superintendent in Harnett County, North Carolina, as he was implementing his Gentlemen's Club programs in the district aimed at helping at-risk youth. My guest is Dr. Stephen G. Peters. Prior to his career in education, Dr. Peters received a full scholarship and was a basketball star at Hampton University. Dr. Peters was inducted into the Colleton County Basketball Hall of Fame in January of 2016 and continues to follow sports faithfully. Upon his graduation from Hampton, he went into teaching, and after demonstrating an ability to transform the classroom and school environment into one of success and achievement, even in the most challenging circumstances, he rose to become one of the most respected educators and school turnaround experts in the United States. Equity, diversity, and inclusion are at the forefront of his vast experiences in education and the nonprofit world. Most of his experiences, including working in underserved communities and providing opportunities for access and equity. Dr. Peters has been a classroom teacher, assistant principal, principal, director of secondary education, and superintendent of schools. He's also served on panels as an education expert with former U.S. Secretary of Education, Dr. Rod Page in Washington, D.C. He is also the author of several award-winning and best-selling books, including one of my favorite, Do You Know Enough About Me to Teach Me? And Teaching to Capture and Inspire All Learners. Dr. Peters is the former superintendent of Lawrence County School District 55 in Lawrence, South Carolina. The county is an underrepresented community. During his 4-year tenure as superintendent, college scholarship funds received by graduating seniors increased by more than $14 million. LCSD 55 was named a 2018 National School District of Distinction under the leadership of Dr. Peters, an honor awarded to school districts that are exemplary models of how schools and school systems work. More recently, the high school has been named the 2019 National Tomorrow's Tech School of the Year by Tomorrow's Tech magazine. Currently, Stephen is the CEO and president of Peters Group, an education consulting company that is dedicated to creating and sustaining success in schools and districts by supporting educators. Key areas include leadership, social justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. He is also founder of a national mentoring program that builds soft skills, STEM, literacy, and leadership skills. The Gentlemen and Ladies Club, which cultivates success in at-risk students through mentoring and self-empowerment, has been featured on the Oprah Winfrey Show, as well as America, America. Dr. Peters was featured in the BBC documentary An American High School in 2016. An American High School was just named the best documentary of 2016 in London and began airing on the National Geographic Channel in the U.S. in October of 2017. Dr. Peters is an advocate for literacy and also served as the president of the board of directors for the International Literacy Association 2021, and he is co-author of One, a process for everyone and everyone. And at this time, it is my pleasure to introduce and bring to you my good friend, Dr. Stephen Peters. Welcome to the Wright Experience.
Dr. Wright, thank you so much. And what a great show you have. I went back and kind of previewed some of your past shows. And as a servant leader, we recognize other servant leaders. Thank you for the vision. From what I understand, belongs to Mrs. Wright.
That's right. That's right.
For this vision. And thank you for what you're doing for leaders, especially during these unprecedented times in public education and in our world. It's good to be with you this evening.
Thank you very much. And I am just thrilled to death to get the opportunity to have you on our show. 10 years ago, I think it was, right around that anyway, we met in Harnett County and just have enjoyed watching your work. And matter of fact, I picked up your book again today, that favorite book of mine, and looked at it and kind of went back through it. Great book and just some great work that you've done to serve students and community. So,
well, to God be the glory for that. I think He calls us to this work, and it's hard work, but it's hard work, right? So,
absolutely,
we continue to get up every morning and do the best we can by bringing the best stuff we can bring to people, trying to capture, inspire, teach, and lead them. And I see you doing that in your school district, and also reaching out to a broader audience where people can virtually tune in to experiences like this. I may not be able to get to their districts, but you're putting them in touch with people, not only me, but others that you are constantly bringing and exposing to educators all over the world. This is a time that we realize we can no longer do this work in isolation. We have to create a synergistic effort. Synergy, the efforts of more than one far outweigh the efforts of one. And you are modeling that right now. So I'm honored to be with you this evening.
I appreciate that shameless plug, Dr.
Yes.
Peters. I'll send you a check later.
No
appreciate
doubt.
that.
Yeah.
Dr. Peters, you have worn and continue to wear so many different hats. And I see that you have recently written a new book that is, I think I hear is slated to come out very shortly. In addition to that, what else has been going on in your world lately?
Well, I'll tell you what, the book is the brainchild actually of 2008-9 National Principal of the Year, Dr. Mark Wilson, and I collaborated on. At a time like this in our country, Mark is a white male, I'm a black male, writing a book called One, right? So it is, we are, as you might imagine, really, really busy setting up our schedule for the rest of this year. The book will launch October 1st. And we are working with districts on the One process, which is not what we traditionally in education ascribe to, the one speech, the professional development. Mark and I are actually working with school districts on a 3-year cycle in the One process. And so what we're saying is we're not doing drive-by speeches. We're going to do work that does not have us coming in saying, okay, Dr. Wright, you need to do these 5 things. You need to do these 7 things. What we're doing is coming into school districts and asking them, what are your 5 things? What are your 7 things? And helping school districts, principals, assistant principals, staff, and teachers examine their work. Right. And so that's what that whole One process is. It's an examination of your work that will inform your future work, will also inform policies and practices in school districts, including school boards, superintendents, principals, community, parents. I think what this pandemic has done is it's unleashed some harsh truths to public educators in the K-12 space. And we are now digesting that But I'm here tonight to tell you, brother, when there is a collision, there's aftershock. And that's what we're experiencing right now.
Right. Certainly. And we're experiencing that right now, just trying to navigate the after effects of the pandemic, if we're out of it yet. Some days I wonder if we're really out of it yet. But anyway, that's for sure. You're the author of an amazing book, as I mentioned earlier, entitled "Do You Know Enough About Me to Teach Me?"
Yes.
And at times now, in my opinion, there appears to be a disconnect between today's youth and the adults that serve them. So how do we fix that, Dr. Peters?
It's a great question. I think we begin, a starting point would be understanding that we can't do the Maslow stuff until we do the Bloom stuff. Right. As educators, we get stuck in this whole piece of pedagogy. And I had a wonderful experience years ago when I was an assistant principal to study at Yale for a summer in the Child Development Center. And that was run by Dr. James Comer. And Dr. Comer drilled in us that no significant teaching and learning can take shape in the absence of a significant relationship. And so from a young man, early on in my career, that drove everything I did, right? I mean, every opportunity I had to establish, develop the foundation of a relationship with students, with staff, it drove my work and continues to drive my work today. I don't think, as Dr. Comer believed, that it's possible to have effective teaching and learning take shape in the absence of a significant relationship. And he didn't say a relationship, he said a significant relationship. Right. And those are two different things. I also think that we have to continue to examine our work. I think that, when you hear people introduced as education experts, I cringe. I ask people not to do that to me because I don't think they exist. I think that we continue to learn and grow together. And that's what I like about the one process. And I think my book, Do You Know Enough About Me to Teach Me? And I followed that up with a book by Coram Press. They published Teaching to Capture and Inspire All Learners, Bringing Your Best Stuff Every Day. And so one book, Do You Know Enough About Me to Teach Me, answered the question, who are these students? And then I followed it up with Teaching to Capture and Inspire Our Learners that answered the question, now that we know who they are, what do we do with them, right? And so that's the concentrated work right now. And what I'm telling people in my messages all over the world right now is the fact that we don't want to go back to the way things were pre-pandemic because that didn't work for the majority of our children in our school districts or schools. What we want to do is we want to create a new normal, right? We want to look at present day and time as opportunities disguised as impossibilities. And I think right now people are really overwhelmed with the idea that it's impossible to do this work, but it's not impossible. I see it every day. I'm working with people who are doing it every day and doing it right and really in the trenches, rolling up their sleeves, all hands on deck, and they're getting after it. But we're not playing with this, Dr. Wright. I told my audience in Macon, Georgia, the day before yesterday, we're not playing. We're out here bringing our best stuff every day, supporting school districts and schools and people like you. I'm doing a lot of superintendent coaching, principal coaching. We can do it virtual. I'm right here in my office at home, coming into the spaces and the bringing energy to superintendents who need a constructive and safe space. And you can get that through executive coaching. I wish I had hired one when I was a sitting superintendent, because I see the value of it, not only from their perspective, but from mine as well. It's reciprocal. It's a win-win for a consultant like me providing that service, and certainly for superintendents and principals. And also we are working with assistant principals as well.
So you served, Dr. Peters, as a superintendent in a rural district. I've been through Lawrence, so I know the area pretty well. What do you believe the unique challenges are for rural superintendents, particularly in today's time?
Yeah, well, I think there are many, but I also think that there are many opportunities for growth, both for the leader and for the communities. Look, I became the first African-American superintendent in the history of Lawrence County. And my wife and I have friends there that will be our friends for life. We met some beautiful people in that small rural town. And we pray for them every day. We lift them up in prayer. But it comes with many complexities because we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. And so there's a struggle by many people to stay in the process of living their lives the way they've always lived it, generation to generation. So it's hard to think that they need to change. Well, what do you mean change? I mean, it worked for my grandfather, it worked for my father, it worked for me. I want it to work for my children and my grandchildren and their children and their grandchildren. This is a different world we live in now. And I tell you, I was sharing with you earlier prior to going live that we have a 16-year-old grandson that graduated high school with a high school diploma in one hand and a 2-year college associate's degree in the other hand, at 16 years old with a 31 on the ACT, full scholarships to all major colleges in the United States. 16 years old, African-American male. And so while we see the news and we read the newspapers about, all of these students of color, particularly the African-American male, that's a story that's not being told enough. And so every opportunity I get to tell it, not just because he's my grandson, but because he is a student of color, a male, that people need to understand that there are African-American males who are excelling academically, socially, and in every other way in our public school system in that K-12 space.
And absolutely, we need to tell our own story more than we do and make sure that it's prevalent. Congratulations to your grandson, by the way.
Yeah. And well, to God be the glory for
look forward to
yes,
reading about him and hearing about all the successes yet to come.
Yeah, I texted him yesterday, and the text I got back from him was, "I do it all for my family, Papa." So it's family matters, but what we have to understand also that the dynamic of family and the definition of family doesn't have to be the traditional sense, right?
That's right.
That many families today consist of people who work in school. We become surrogate. I've become surrogate fathers and grandfathers and uncles to many, many children all over the world, wherever I work. And so when we talk about family, family can be defined as in many ways. And many school districts are stepping up to the plate, but our teachers and our teacher leaders are tired right now, and they're tired for a good reason. But we've got to continue to validate and affirm the greatness of our teachers, because what we're asking them to do right now is to perform miracles every day.
Exactly.
And they're doing it.
Yeah. And doing it well. And
Yes.
and here in North Carolina, we kind of threw a summer school in there too, by the way, Dr. Peters, at the last minute.
Right.
And I'm saying, guys, we need a break. No learning needs to be taking place, but these folks need a break from. But anyway, they are working very hard, and that's a challenge for me. I certainly want to make sure that people understand that educators are working as hard as they ever have, and they need to be supported and celebrated for that work. So
and I think when we look at the silver linings of going through the pandemic, and also we can't talk about the pandemic without talking about the social unrest in our country, because
Absolutely.
they are happening simultaneously. But I think that parents really have a renewed respect for what teachers do every day, because
Sure.
they had to do it in their homes. I mean, I had superintendents that I coach say, look, I'm getting calls from parents saying my child won't turn their camera on. And the superintendent's like, well, that's your house. What do you want me to do? You know, you want me to do a home visit to get your child to turn the camera on. And so what we have to understand is we need to, I remember a couple of years ago, we were talking about flipping instruction. We need to flip the parent cycle, and we need to flip it from parents as consumers of public education to parents as partners in education. That parents need to become our partners. They need to be part of our team. And I often say those closest to the problem always deserve a seat at the table to help solve those problems. We need to start giving people seats at that table instead of laboring over the issues and coming up with the problems and solutions ourselves and then giving it to people. Let's own it together. Let's assemble and create better conditions for students together.
Absolutely. And do that through this so important communication. We always talk about communication, but it's gotta. Never was there a time where communication is more important than it is right now, I think.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Dr. Peters, you talked a little bit about post-pandemic leadership already, but if you could provide a list for us of things that leaders need to be looking for right now, in particular in this post-pandemic period of time, if indeed we are in a post-pandemic period of time, what would be on that list?
All right. So I believe that we're not there, and I believe that we are. That the scary part about this, Dr. Wright, is I don't think we're even close to being there. Yeah. And I think that's the mistake we made last spring.
Absolutely.
I think that there was enough evidence, there was enough research and science that would tell us that we might be coming into another collision when school was supposed to start. But people just didn't listen, and we didn't pay attention to those yellow lights. We ran through those yellow lights instead of proceeding with caution. I think we needed to pause and to assemble smart people to help us to get through this. I think now we need to, and I'm a visual learner, so follow me with this. I think we need to have what our goals are right now for second semester and for the summer, right? Second semester 2022, and then the summer. What are we looking at? And then once we establish those goals, we move around that circle to the base of it, and we mark the reality. So you have the goals, then you have the reality that you are going to try to achieve those goals in, right? Mm-hmm. Once we move there, we move up the other side of that circle, and then we list our options. What are the options that we have, right? Realistic, viable options, things that we can see as a vision, but then we can operationalize on the ground every day, right? And then once we have our goals and we base it in reality, and we examine what the reality is of achieving those goals, we find the options, then the top of that circle moving with an arrow across is a way forward. What is our way forward? So that would take us to summer school. It would take us to the fall of next year. It would take us through first semester of next year. And I think we would have viable options around that other side of the circle that people would expect. And then we can inspect what we expect to make sure that we're monitoring it appropriately and we're moving in the right direction. People are so tired of changing the car tire while the car is moving. and that's what we've been doing. We've been having blowout after blowout, and the car is moving. We're trying to jack the car up, take the tire off, put the new tire on, and keep it moving. We have to, number one, understand that wellness right now, the mental, the spiritual, the emotional side of what educators are being called to do right now is like I said earlier, we're asking you all to perform miracles every day. We're asking you to receive children in the morning, send them back home, number one, safe, healthy, and we're asking you to educate them in the process. So now schools in the K-12 space are being asked to raise children and educate them at the same time, right? And
with all of this social unrest too. That's right.
And when you're home, if we go virtual, then don't worry about providing a computer for your child. We'll do that. We'll be responsible for doing that too. And once we give you the hardware and the software of a Chromebook or a computer, then if you don't have access to the internet, then we'll provide a hotspot for you. And if that doesn't work, we'll park a bus in an area that you can come to. And by the way, we'll feed you too. We'll still send food to your house. School districts feeding millions of children during the course of a 12-month span, hundreds of thousands of students. And so, I share all that to put it in perspective, because I don't think people realize the heavy lifting that is taking place right now. And you can hear the argument, well, my taxpayer money, your taxpayer money doesn't stretch that far to be able to pay all these people appropriately and in accordance with duties and responsibilities. And I think we need people to say that. I heard the governor, and I won't mention the state, say that poverty is the enemy of education. And I said, I was there that day, and I said, with all due respect, I agree with you, but I also agree and believe wholeheartedly, 100%, that literacy is the vaccine for poverty.
All right.
And so as you think about what the collision causer is, then we have to find ways to deal with the aftershock. And I say, in this time of talking about vaccines, we need to be talking about how literacy is the vaccine for poverty, for all of these children who are struggling, generational gaps of students. And I believe, as an educator, wholeheartedly and passionately, that every generation in a child's family should get better. And the determinator is education and literacy. If you can combine those two forces, it would be hard for a child not to be successful.
Speaking of literacy, you've done a tremendous amount of work on literacy, including at the international level. Mm-hmm. And so, as you know, right now, many schools in the U.S. are suffering in this area. So moving forward, where should our attention be focused as leaders to address deficits in literacy? What do we need to do about that?
You really, really have some great questions, Dr. Wright. You really do. I think the first thing that we need to understand is the power of literacy, right? I've served on the board of the International Literacy Association since 2016. This is my 5th year. Last year I was president. This year I'm still on the board as past president. And I was a board member 16 through 19. And we launched Children's Rights to Read, 10 fundamental rights that every child in the world has to be able to develop how to have a joy for reading. And once a child has developed a joy for reading, you don't have to remind them to read, tell them to read, ask them whether they read. They have that joy. And the earlier we do that, the better. When I was superintendent in Lawrence, we had what we call 30 for 30, because I'm an avid ESPN sports person. I've been an athlete all my life. And so, but the 30 for 30 in the sense of literacy for us was first thing in the morning in all of our schools, we had 30 minutes of uninterrupted reading. How do you become a better reader? You read. And so we gave students the opportunity to do that first thing in the morning. That's how we started our school day. And then the other 30 minutes of uninterrupted reading, we asked the parents to do. And so let's go back to what I talked about earlier about flipping the parent relationship from consumer to partner. And so we facilitated that partnership by asking them to ensure that their children, our students, were reading 30 minutes of uninterrupted reading at home. So in essence, our children began reading 1 hour of active reading every day. And we saw the impact, positive impact in our scores and our test scores and our assessment. And many of the students said to me when they took standardized tests, they had reading stamina. They no longer got tired reading the question. And in some instances, I had several students say, what I didn't understand, I went back and I read it again because they had that reading stamina and they could read in context and so forth. So I believe we begin as early as we can and we help our children develop a joy for reading.
And you're talking deliberate and intentional.
Yes.
Where you've got a process similar to personal wellness. You're talking about literacy wellness, aren't you?
Absolutely. And part of the one process that Mark Wilson and I write about in our new book, One, a process for schools of excellence for everyone and everyone, we talk about 30 for 30 and, intentional strategic strategies that can be operationalized and turned into results.
Right. Absolutely. So, Dr. Peters, recruitment and retention of educational personnel has been a problem lately. And this is particularly true amongst people of color. What ideas do you have that we can work on to try to fix that?
Yeah. So everybody wants to be a part of a winning team, right? Everybody. Yeah. Right. You assemble a team and you win. People want to be a part of that. And once they become a part of it and they attain success being a part of that team, why would they want to leave? Because you've created a space that people get up in the morning. That's always been my mantra as a principal and a superintendent. When I was a principal, I wanted teachers and staff to get up in the morning and get in their cars and say, I can't think of a better place to go work than where I'm going. That's my job as a leader. But we have to understand that we are also living in the 21st century of social media being the number one influence upon people in the world. Social media, multimedia, television, telephones, computers. It is a powerful, powerful influence. And so we can't have leaders thinking about themselves and only about themselves in their next job or their next contract. Or I think, and this is a personal opinion that I have, is that we have far too many leaders at the superintendent and principal level afraid to do to make mistakes. They just are afraid to mess up. They want to be able to keep their job. So the fear of losing their job is preventing them from actually doing their jobs effectively. Right. And so courage and fear can't coexist. I believe that when you create an environment or a culture for people, they want to be a part of that culture. And you don't have to worry about retaining them. What you need to put your focus and emphasis on is creating the right culture and climate for people to want to come there every day and not only just show up, but to bring their best stuff to that school district or to that school. And then retention takes care of itself. Just like, we were talking about reading. When you develop a joy of reading, nobody has to check about whether you're reading. You're going to do it. And I believe that people return to places that create a sense of stability, security, and where they feel validated and affirmed on a daily basis, that there are people saying thank you for what you do. When I was a principal, I hand wrote personal notes to teachers and staff, thanking them. And sometimes even going so far as to writing in that short note what I saw them do last week and saying this school wouldn't be the same without you. Thank you. And I'm the principal. That goes a long way to having somebody say, well, if I have another job offer, I'm going to entertain it. No, I'm not going to entertain it because I'm not going to get this feeling. I'm not going to be validated and affirmed the way I am here and appreciated. So I think that's the best move that anybody can make, is to create that culture that people want to be a part of, make them a part of it, and have them own the work that's happening there. They won't want to leave.
I've often, it's great to hear you say that. I've often told my principals and those that I supervise that of all of the ISLIC standards, you got managerial, you got instructional leadership, all of that cultural leadership is the most important piece. Because if you get that right, the rest of that stuff will take care of itself.
Yeah, and I believe it was Todd Whitaker who said the culture of any school district or school is shaped by the worst behavior the leaders willing to tolerate. And so, I always tried to make sure that the worst behavior I was willing to tolerate was always communicated, and that was bring no harm to children, right? We're there to elevate, to lift, and when a child falls, there's a safety net that's so broad that we cast that net so wide that we catch them all, right? And those that might fall through that safety net, we know who they are, and we're able to triage them immediately. That we're that aware of that space.
So, Dr. Peters, what's next on your agenda after the book signing and release? And
well, I came to Georgia. My wife became provost and vice president of Albany State University. She supported my career, my work for so long. I want to do that for her. I want to support her work. I came here. I thought I was going to play a lot of golf. I did get a hole in one.
All right. Congratulations.
27 years, first hole in one. And so I have that ball up on that case up there in glass, right? Because I may never get another one. But I am living my best life right now, Dr. Wright. And I'm so grateful to God for the calling that he placed upon my life. I'm glad I didn't make it to the NBA. I'm glad that God put me in the arena of classrooms and public schools and school districts. And now I just want to continue to serve as a servant leader, helping leaders like you help others learn and grow. I mean, I'm learning and growing with you all so that I can bring the substance to you so that you can take it to the people that you manage and lead every day. We are all in this together, and I believe that we're going to come out on the other side. I often wonder who the next Dr. James Comer is, or Larry Lazat, or Tom Peters, or Ron Edmonds. Who's the next Ron Edmonds? And while I don't try to live my life in such a way that I become one of them, I am prayerful that the legacy, the leadership legacy that I leave when I'm no longer here, that people will refer to and begin to construct education leadership practices accordingly.
Well, we already know who you are for sure, and the work that you do, and very thankful for it. I know that every time there's a tweet that comes from you or a book released, I know that it's going to help us become better leaders. So certainly we're appreciative of the work. And 10 years ago, when you were working with young men at Star Academy in Harnett County.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that far back, but I certainly do. And the impact that you had on those young men, and just giving them a sense of purpose. And because I was a high school principal and then became assistant superintendent, I had some cases where I knew the students and the impact that work that you did, just making children feel good about themselves and understanding that their tomorrow could be better than today. And so,
that's amazing. You mentioned that because we are getting ready to launch our first gentlemen's club in Kenya, Africa.
Okay. Wow.
And you talk about Star Academy. It started 25. This is our 25th anniversary of the gentlemen's club, and then the ladies' club came, right after that. but 25 years of capturing, inspiring, and teaching young boys and girls how to be ladies and gentlemen. And we continue that work, and now it's becoming more philanthropic in terms of providing scholarships to HBCUs for many of our students. And Angela and I embarking on our own personal crusade to give as much as we can to educate first generation college students from our gentlemen's and ladies clubs.
And certainly right now in 2021 and beyond, there's no time any better than for us to be engaging in those kind of activities, because our children need all the support and help they can get. For sure.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. And again, it goes right back to that cycle we talked about family in a non-traditional sense, that for many of our students, the ladies and gentlemen's clubs become their family. That's right. And so we're certainly grateful to be called to that mission, because this today, my friend, is a mission field.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Are there any other topics of discussion that I've omitted that we need to discuss at this time? I've been a wealth of knowledge, and I knew this. My audience is getting to know you, some of them, but certainly I knew what I was getting, and I'm glad.
Oh, great. I'm just glad to be with you, man. It's been a wonderful 30, 40 minutes with you. Continue to do great work, and
well, thank you.
And do it courageously. Courage. Courageous leadership, dedicated, committed and courageous. Continue to walk in your steps. They're ordered. Know that you're anointed to do this work, and nobody can do it better. And that's the last thing I want to say to the listening audience, those of you who are with us now, and certainly those who may be able to see this in the recording format, whether it's YouTube or whatever format you see it in. Know that nobody has ever done this work, and that nobody does it better than you. God bless you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Pease. If you'll hold on with me for just a minute, I will come back and close the show.
Certainly.
My guest next week will be Dr. Ethan Linker. Dr. Linker is the superintendent of Pitt County Schools in North Carolina. Dr. Linker is also currently one of the longest serving superintendents in the state of North Carolina. Certainly look forward to that experience. That'll be next Thursday evening on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. Dr. Peters, I want to thank you very much for being my guest. And from the first time that I saw you 10 plus years ago, I was always impressed with you and your willingness to pull the covers back so that we all can see how we get better. Because at the end of the day, this work that we do, as you said earlier, is heart work, HEART. And so we've got to continue to learn and move forward to try to help young folks. And so I appreciate you always reminding us of that, and certainly look forward to having you back on this platform if you're willing to do so at a later date. And so certainly just thank you for agreeing to be a part of this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your school district is very, very blessed to have you, sir. Continue. Godspeed to you and your family. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. I'll pay you for that comment later.
Yes, sir. Take care.
And to the Wright Experience audience, thank you so much for watching. Good evening.